Hello and welcome back to True Crime Guys Podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
What's up, people? How's your day going?
Hope everyone's doing
can't
well.
answer. You can't answer.
I can answer. My day's doing pretty good, man. It's doing
That's
pretty
good.
great here. You know, it's nice and cool. I'm excited. I'm excited about the fall weather. I hit the flea market this morning. Didn't find anything cool. My son got a remote control tarantula. That's probably
What?
about the coolest thing. Yeah. It's
Probably about the coolest thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah. Yeah. If it looked a little more real, it would definitely be one of the coolest toys ever. But it's
Right.
probably about 10 inches in diameter, you know, like leg span. So it's pretty good sized tarantula here. This is definitely a camel spider or something.
Imagine the possibilities if your son's what, like 10 or something?
Yeah, yeah.
Imagine a 10-year-old and you have that. Like, you're just thinking, like, how can I screw with people? How many people can I scare with this thing? Like, just have it come
Exactly.
walking out of the room or come walking into mom and dad's room in the middle of the night.
Right, exactly. I think in like a loud environment, you know, like if you were at a party or a get together or something,
Yeah.
it'd be ideal. But the freaking animatronics of it are so loud. It's like, yeah. It's just,
That's a weird sounding spider.
it's like, right? Why do four legs move at one time? Why does the whole right side move? That's just weird.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah,
he's
if
having-
you could
he's
just
having
roll
fun
up
with
behind
that.
somebody at a party and just park it there, and then they turn around and see it.
Yeah, exactly. And have it
Yeah.
crawl up underneath their chair or something.
Right.
But yeah,
So,
so he's having fun with that.
That's good. That's good. So no, things are going well in your life. No bad neighbors to worry about.
No. Not that I can say, and most of them are related to me anyway, so it's not really shit I can do about it, you know? It's one of those instances. It's like sometimes
That's kind of
when you're-
that's kind of like my same situation too. I have like
Yeah.
several family members up where I live in a small town. So
yeah, and when you're too close to your neighbors like that, there's really nothing you can do. It's like, what do you got to do? Call the police on your grandpa? It's like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I know
Right.
he's pissing in the garden again, but you know, he can't hold it. He's getting older. It's
Grandpa said he's
whatever.
cutting me out of the will, officer.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's not right.
But that hasn't stopped the cops being called out here a few times. You know, sometimes family disputes get a little heated. You know, that's just the
Right.
way it goes. It's just the way it goes. Sometimes you can get a little too close to each other. You know, you get
Yeah.
a little too much of each other.
It's
And,
you know what? Actually, I've watched several. We're doing a case on bad neighbors and an episode of Fear Thy Neighbor this week. If you haven't figured that out yet, and I've watched a bunch of these episodes. It's a pretty fun show, and it's the acting is over the top, and it's almost even a little cheesy, but it's like enjoyable at the same time. Because
It is.
really, the acting needs to be over the top because disputes between neighbors that get heated to the point where someone kills the other person, it's drama to the max. You know, it's people screaming at the top of their lungs and whatnot.
Right.
Um,
and we
so
talked.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we've talked about how road rage incidents and things like that get heated due to the already elevated, you know, heartbeat and sensitivity of your brain, you know, like moving at that fast pace. But I think also these type of altercations are just as bad. They can get just as intense because it's happening somewhere where you are supposed to have your sanctuary.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's somewhere where you're supposed to be safe. You're supposed to be able to do whatever the hell you want. It's your house, it's your property, but yet you have someone terrorizing you at your home. And it's
Yeah.
like you get no rest. It's just
Yeah.
constant anxiety. And I think that's why these things blow up.
Yeah,
know,
your
that-
job and the world out there is stressful enough, and you want to be able to come home and sigh relief and just like, okay, I'm home. And
Right.
but when you pull up in your driveway and your neighbor is out there waiting for you to torment you, like this case,
Oh my
then
God.
what relief do you ever get? And you can see how this person blew up. But what I was going with this is that I've watched several of these episodes of this show, and it seems like the ones oftentimes the neighbors were good friends first, and then it went badly. And like what you're saying about family, kind of the same thing. Where
Yep.
it's like we used to be close, and then when it goes bad, it's almost more passion involved and more
Right.
hate. Like it's bizarre.
Yeah, somebody always oversteps their boundaries, right? They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we know them. It'll be fine if we just go and such and such or you know,
Right,
go
right.
through their yard. We can walk through their yard or do this and do that." And then people are like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. What the fuck?" It's like, "We were cool, but that's too much."
Right.
And I think that's usually what happens among neighbors. I mean, like I said, I've had that type of thing just happen just amongst family because we all live near each other, so we will walk through each other's yards and back properties and stuff to get to places.
Well, I didn't think
And
you'd mind if I borrowed your lawnmower real quick and
right.
without asking. It's like, well, at least ask, motherfucker,
Yeah, exactly.
and put some gas
Exactly.
in it when you're done. What the fuck?
Yeah, right? Exactly. Sometimes friends treat friends the worst because they feel like they can get away with it because they
Right.
feel
They
that,
take advantage of them.
right. They're like, what are they going to do? We're friends, right? All the stuff that
Hmm.
I've done for them. And,
Exactly.
but it can get out of hand. People can overreach.
And also, sometimes people can change. And in this case, these
Now
two
that's the
couples were
truth.
great friends, lived next to each other, and then
Yeah.
one of the couples moved away for a decade, came back, and were completely different. And
Well,
it's
I
pretty
mean,
compelling stuff.
a decade though. I mean,
A
God,
decade can change you
anybody
for
could
sure.
a year. Don't
Hmm.
think that people are the same after a year or 6 months, depending on what
Right.
they experienced. And then you talk about a decade. It's like
Yep.
Jesus, these people could have went through entire revelations in the way that they
Hmm.
think and how they identify themselves.
Yep, yep. And so yeah, it's a very compelling case. We'll dive into that, and then afterwards, we actually have a couple stories from listeners we put out there on Patreon. If anybody had horror stories of neighbors and whatnot,
Yes,
bad neighbors, because it's such a common thing that happens, dude. There's a reason that there's like 6 seasons of Fear Thy Neighbor with like 15 episodes each. Dude, like this shit happens all the
I can't.
time. Neighborly disputes that get bloody in the end.
Dude, I never heard of this show. I can't believe it. I enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed watching anything true crime.
Yeah, it's
And
it's very like entertaining,
it
and
is.
it usually ends horribly. So it sounds like even weird to say it's entertaining, but
And they do a great job unfolding the story as well. They keep you in
yeah.
the dark until you need to know what you need to know. And
Yeah. You
yeah,
can
I,
find
I
it on
thoroughly
Discovery
enjoyed it.
ID channel, or like if
Yep.
you have cable, you can log into their website through your cable provider and watch all the episodes on their website.
Oh,
And yeah,
nice.
every one of them I've watched has been compelling and entertaining.
I think I rented on YouTube. It was like $1.99 on YouTube. So I was
And the
like,
way it's
just for this one episode, I think I'll do that.
isn't the way it's portrayed, it kind of lulls you into like thinking, okay, this isn't going to end that bad. But then every time it's like, holy, it always like knocks your
Yeah.
socks off at the end. You're like,
Yeah.
damn, I didn't see it going this far.
Listen, like I said, I'd
Like a
never seen
double
this
murder
show
in the
before.
street. Jesus.
Right. Like I said, I never. Wow. Talk about spoilers. Um, oh, look who it is.
I didn't say
Person
who was
who
getting
left a
killed.
comment and says that Michael always spoils it. No,
Right.
but yeah, when I saw the intro and I saw the logo for the show, it's like a bloody handprint on a window, right? And
Yeah.
it's like Fear Thy Neighbor. I'm like, whoa, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. I'm like, this isn't gonna be. Oh, okay, yeah, it is. All right,
Right.
fair enough. Fair
Yep.
enough.
Yep. So let's get into it, and we'll talk about these neighbors they went from fast friends to mortal enemies.
All right, let's do it.
Had a friend, thought she was grand, till the day I found out firsthand. She moved away for 10 years or so. When she came back, she was ready to go. In a trap, trash can I can't grab. Never thought that she would get so mad. Then I started to realize that shit wasn't just a bird alive. She fucking hates me. Trust, she fucking hates me. La 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 la. I tried too hard as she tore my feelings like I had none and ripped them away. She really got to Erwin too. She took his piece, what could he do? But one day he took it back, and he's still paying for that. He fucking hates her. Trust, he fucking hates her. La 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 la. He tried to ignore it, but she pushed his button. Still there was none, and he blew her away.
All right, a case this week actually was out of North Kakalaki,
Uh-oh.
not too far from Michael.
That's right. About an hour and a half. About the area I went to college. I went to college up in Western Carolina, and this is on the way there. This is about 30 minutes from where I went to college. little
So
town.
who better to describe Arden, North Carolina, where this story takes place than you? You've been through here,
Yeah.
know the area.
I was actually surprised at this intense of a story came from this. Well, once I figured out all the facts and
The
all the
details of it.
details, I thought, yeah, this sounds like how a normal North Carolina man would have reacted at push, or any man, or really any man who was
Right.
pushed to this
Hold in
point.
your rage until it just bursts.
Yes,
Like don't don't vent it all. Just completely let that
yeah,
steam build
just
up
let it,
inside until you explode.
just let it build up. Just to turn the other cheek as long as you can, and
I
then
almost feel
over
like it could have
retaliate.
at the moment this guy did what he did, I almost feel like you could see like physically see steam come out of his ears or like hear a
Oh,
whistle
dude.
going off like you have a teapot on the kettle, it starts whistling.
Right, and we'll get to it, and we can have a debate on whether or not we would have lasted as long as he did. But
Right.
I can't confidently say that I would have at that point. I probably
Right.
would have left actually, because see, I wouldn't be tied to a place like that, and if my family's being threatened, I would have left a long time ago. But
Now, see, that's the thing. That's the thing about him is like I feel like he would have, but his wife, his high school sweetheart. We'll get into all these
yes,
details, but she, as we're about to get into, was born and raised in this home with her parents. She's now
and
in her 50s,
yeah,
and her parents are gone. They've passed on, and she's in this home she grew up in, and her parents have given it to her. She grew up in this hometown. It's all she knows, and it's like leaving this home would be. It's impossible for her to even
right.
comprehend leaving this home. It's all she knows. All of these memories are tied to it, and so like that's his wife. So in order to leave this home, he has to leave her, and that's not going to happen.
Right, and I get
So
it though. I mean that Western Carolina, it's full of towns like this. They're just small towns. They're very
yeah,
remote. It's beautiful,
simple
dude.
people.
It's not too hot, right? Because you're at a higher
Yeah,
elevation. You're heading up towards the mountains, so it's never too hot. The winters can be rough, but I mean anybody in the Midwest or in the North would laugh at you. I mean,
would laugh at
yeah,
it. Yeah,
it's nothing. I mean, you're gonna get maybe a week or two of snowy weather over the course of the
hmm
entire winter, and the rest is just going to be beautiful weather. It's going to be
yeah.
cool breezes, beautiful leaves changing in the fall. I mean, it is a great place to live. It's very quiet communities. Even Asheville, who is probably the biggest city
Yeah.
in the West and is known as being like most progressive, still a very friendly, very polite small town feel.
And Asheville, it looked on the map to me like was just right down the road from Arden, right?
Yes, yeah, yep. Asheville's not
Okay.
far away at all.
Yeah. So this story takes place in Arden, North Carolina. Kind of, I mean, we're going to go through the 90s and into the 2000s and all the way up to 2013 is when the actual crime takes place. But this is a long-lasting relationship between these two couples that live next door to each
Right,
other.
very, and all this is
And we'll,
important information as well.
yeah, and we'll start with Jenny Jarvis, who was born and raised in Arden. She was the wife of a guy named Irwin Jarvis. When Jenny's parents passed away, they gave her their home, and Jenny moved in with her high school sweetheart Irwin. So this is the home that she grew up in with her parents, and when they passed on, they gave it to her. She immediately moved in, not wanting to let go of this home that she had so many memories attached to. I can only imagine this home, like the memories that she's experienced there. Like she's basically from the time she was a baby, she was raised there,
Yeah,
and when her parents pass away, I don't know when it could have been in her 30s, 40s, or 50s or whatever. She moves in, and then she with her high school sweetheart Irwin they have a son together, and the son is now a full grown adult and still living with his parents at this
right.
home. And so there's just so many memories, like her as a child, her son as a child
Yeah,
growing up
he's
there, and
probably
everything.
waiting
I
to
could see
inherit
how you
the
wouldn't.
house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, their son had no plans of moving out. Apparently, he was
No.
I believe like in his 20s,
Wow.
maybe even older. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Shoot.
So, and Jenny was a school teacher and known and beloved by everyone in town. And her husband and high school sweetheart Irwin was more of an introverted, quiet guy, an electrician that mostly kept to himself. But they'd been together forever since high school, and
Right.
kind of a picturesque life in a beautiful town, like you talked about.
Absolutely. They seem like soulmates, man. They really seem like they had everything
Oh
figured
yeah,
out. Like they lived a
yeah.
simple life, and some people would say
hmm
maybe a sheltered life. But to them, it was all they wanted. And
But yeah, if you're happy
that,
with that, then I don't
that's
see
right.
any problem with it. All that matters is if you're happy. That's how I feel, in life.
100%.
If you're happy and you're not being a burden to other people, because life's life's fickle and it could end at any time. And also, like, we're on this rock spinning in space. So it's like, who really gives a shit about what you did in your life when it's over? As long as you were good to other people, I feel like that's the important part.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't
But
don't hurt or harm other people, and do the things that you love as often as you can. And
yeah,
if you're happy doing that stuff, hey man, who's to say that's not the way to live?
yeah. And apparently, my computer agrees. If you heard
I
that, that
did.
was like a very
I heard
confirming
that.
sound that it just said. You just figured out life. Ding!
Ding. Level up.
Yeah, right. Xbox achievement achieved. So, and what made their life better, like even better, was the Jarvises. They had a pair of neighbors that were very like-minded, and they were really like close friends. I'd probably say it was their best friends.
Yeah, that's
They
fair.
lived directly next door, and for many years and into the late 1990s, the Jarvises had great friends in their next-door neighbors, Robert Matheson, who went by Jesse, and his wife Janice Miller Matheson. So they were a very like-minded couple, a little bit older. And Jenny and Jarvis, or Jenny and Janice, were very close and had similar interests in child development. So the wives of the two couples were always hanging out, and I believe Janice was she in like
She was a nurse.
she was in it, was she a
Yes,
nurse?
I think
Okay.
she was a nurse that worked in in the birthing area of the
Oh,
labor
okay.
area of the hospital. I would think. I think she mostly worked with women giving birth, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's kind of why her and Jenny had such a connection, because they were both in kind of child welfare kind of type deal situations.
Yeah, right. Both love
Child
children very
development,
much.
rather.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometime around 1999 or 2000, Janice was pregnant with her first child. Jenny, the next door neighbor and her good friend, was ecstatic for her and checked in on her frequently. You know, the TV show shows like footage, like reenactments of her like kissing her stomach and feeling the kicks, and
Right.
they were really close friends. And she was right next door, so Jenny was constantly coming over to check on and see if Janice needed anything. And you imagine probably hosted baby showers and things like
Oh,
that for her.
of course, yeah. That's what friends do.
Yeah, and something happens though around this time that changes everything, changes their relationship, changes seemingly the Mathesons forever, and they never turned back because Janice suddenly and tragically lost her child late in the pregnancy. And the Mathesons were obviously distraught. They had lost their child, their unborn child, and the Jarvises did their best to comfort them, as you would if you were like close family members. They lived right next door, and they felt their pain as well. And in the Fear the Neighbor episode, Irwin was interviewed and talked about attending their funeral and sharing their in their grief of their beloved neighbors.
Right.
And so yeah, everybody was kind of really shaken by this event.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of start to share that grief, because you were looking forward to that experience. You were looking forward to seeing a child playing in the yard, and possibly
Exactly.
babysitting while their parents go on date night. Like, you had this whole future planned out with this human, regardless of whether it's yours or not. And then it's gone. I mean,
Yeah.
this is one of the toughest things I think anybody has to go through, is losing a child, especially so late in the pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah, when you can feel it moving around and everything in there, that's
yes.
that's a
You
little
feel
person.
the life inside you, and then it's gone. It's like,
Yeah.
that's not
That's
easy.
brutal. Yeah. So then, following the funeral, in the middle of the night, the Mathesons leave their home and they take almost nothing with them. And amazingly, they're not seen again for 10 years. I mean,
10
I say amazingly
years.
because you can understand them leaving, but then reappearing 10 years later is the bizarre part.
Yeah,
to me.
yeah,
It's like I can understand that maybe she felt shame even though it's not her fault, and she felt just so saddened and didn't want to, like, when you go through something like that, like the people that are there to comfort you, sometimes it can, you don't even want to see them,
Well,
because it's just a reminder of what you just went through.
not only that, you're not only looking at your neighbors, you're looking at your perfect neighbors, your neighbors that have seemingly the
Yes.
perfect relationship with the perfect little home, and their little son that lives with them, and because he's not an adult at this time. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
That's a
it
good
just
point. I
all-
forgot that the Jarvis's son would have been young at this time, because this was before the 10-year hiatus.
Exactly. So it seems like it's all rubbing it in, I think, to a certain extent,
Yeah.
even though the Jarvises weren't doing anything in particular, but trying
No.
to be there. It's just they're like, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I don't necessarily want to call it jealousy, but it does come from that spot. It does come a little. I think a little
Right.
bit of that came from that place, and I think even Jenny herself has said that in an interview. on how Janice was starting to show a lot of signs of jealousy towards her and irritants later on. So, and I
Right.
think that started before they left, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the Mathesons felt like they kept getting dealt a shitty hand in life over and over, and it really built up, and it started to drive them crazy.
Right.
Those signs don't show until the next part of this story when they return. But over the next 10 years, the Mathesons seem to continue paying their mortgage. Their home doesn't go into foreclosure. It's not sold to any other couples or anything like
Right.
that. It remains just sitting there. And it's still apparently owned by the Mathesons, and the Jarvises do their best to maintain the property. I think for their friends' sake and also for the neighborhood's sake, they didn't want this dilapidated home that could potentially be overtaken by squatters or
Yeah.
who knows what.
Or
It could
animals.
bring down their property value, animals, yeah,
I
whatever.
mean, you let that grass grow up alone. I mean, you're going to have rats. And then
Mm-hmm.
they lived right next door. So, I mean, I get their thinking. And not only were they taking
Yeah.
care of the home, they were also making it look like somebody was there. You know, they would check the
Exactly.
mail, they would put the garbage out. Like you said, they'd
Yep.
keep the lawn cut. I mean, of course the house was falling apart, but I mean, they can't do everything. You can't expect them to sink
Right.
money into maintaining a home that no one lives in. But they
Exactly.
did what
So
any good
Erwin and
neighbors would do, in my opinion.
Exactly. So Erwin and Jenny, like we said, maintaining their property the best that they could. They never went in the home or anything like that. That would be overstepping the boundaries by anything, by the law and by their friends and all that stuff. So they never did anything like that, but they would check the doors periodically to make sure that they were still locked, check the windows to make sure no one had broken in, and mow the lawn. And by 10 years in, Jenny had a giant like trash bag filled with mail that was the Mathesons' mail. So saving it just in case they reappeared. And then suddenly, after 10 years, that's exactly what happened. The Mathesons reappear. They're seen in their driveway by the Jarvises unloading, and the Jarvises are just completely elated to see them. They can't believe what they're seeing, that they've returned. But the excitement didn't seem to go both ways. The Mathesons had clearly changed for the worse during their 10 years away. The Jarvises would come to find out that Robert had struggled to find work, and they had bounced around from town to town, and Janice had apparently been suffering from a serious health problem, so it had not been a good 10 years for the Mathesons. And meanwhile, they're looking at the Jarvises, whose life hasn't changed. It's still perfect in their eyes, and you can probably immediately sense the resentment they had reappear
Right.
after all these
No
years.
doubt.
And so now the Jarvises had a couple of apparent things that had changed physically. Like they had this large aggressive dog, a husky, which the show had it as a Rottweiler.
I was about to say,
but I think
a Rottweiler makes way more sense. It made it way scarier, but a husky barking at it.
I know, right? Huskies are. I haven't seen too many like aggressive huskies. I mean,
don't get me wrong. I don't want to get attacked by any dog around that size.
Yeah, and huskies are
But
huge.
I
yeah.
would. But if somebody is like, "You want to battle this husky or this Rottweiler?" I'm like, "Bro, give me the husky all day."
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, Rottweilers have more of a reputation for the potential to be aggressive and stuff. I've had several and been around several, and they're sweethearts.
Yeah.
So it's all in how you raise them. So like we say, huskies usually aren't aggressive, but if you are a couple like the Mathesons who are angry at the
Right.
world and stuff, and you want to shut everyone out, it's a perfect chance to train a dog to be that way. And it seems like that was what was going on. They were making this dog aggressive. They seemed like they constantly kept it on like a choker chain, and were like letting it lunge at people and not stopping it, like almost letting it happen or like encouraging it to do so.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like they were rewarding it for being an aggressive
They
dog.
were. That's what
And
they
if
wanted.
You can.
That's what they wanted.
Yeah.
They wanted people to stay away. That's exactly what they wanted. They
Mhm.
wanted.
They were shutting the world
Yep.
out
They were.
because they were angry at the world for, like I said, dealing them hand after hand of bad cards.
And also, I think at this point they were embarrassed. There was a little
Yeah.
bit of embarrassment, like, "Hey, we're not a charity. We don't need your help," even though they did.
Mhm.
And that's a hard thing to admit. It really is, especially when you were doing fine and we're such close friends and fit in so well with this well-to-do neighborhood. You know what I mean? I'm not saying these people are
Yeah.
rich or wealthy or anything, but they were nice homes with nice yards and kept
Yeah,
up
yeah.
people who had careers. And then
Right.
now you're the family that's barely making it by. Your house is falling apart. Everybody sees it. You show up randomly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think they had. This was not something they wanted to. I don't think they wanted to return to this home. I
Exactly.
think this was a Hail Mary. They had to do it because I think that when they left that house, they had no plans of ever
I
returning.
agree
And if
100%.
things went well, then the husband of the Mathesons would have found a job, and Jesse, as I'm speaking of,
Right.
would have found a solid job somewhere in another town, and they could have started anew without, the reputation that they had.
Right. 100%. And that's probably that's what they tried to do. Like you said, I think when they left 10 years ago, they had no intent in coming back. They were just like, well,
Yeah.
we lost everything else and we still own this house. And even if they try to take it from us, it's going to take this much length of time at least. You know what I mean? So it just buys them time. I think they came back just to buy some time at that house.
Exactly. Yeah, and so another shocking thing to the Jarvises to the Mathesons, the Jarvises noticed when the Mathesons returned was that they also had a 8 or 9 year old boy. So they had apparently succeeded in their next attempt to have a child.
Yeah.
Shortly after their disappearance from this town and from their home.
Right.
Not long after that, they must have had a son, and now this son was 8 or 9 years old, and so they were like so happy for them on that front. But right off the bat, as we mentioned, the Mathesons are extremely cold to their former close friends, the Jarvises. It was clear that money was tight for Janice and Jesse. And so within a few days of them moving back into their home, Jenny decided to swing by, knock on the door, and bring them a box of food to help them while they got settled back into their home. In the show, it had her say, like, I don't know if you had time to go to the grocery store with all, as busy as you are moving back in
Right.
and stuff. So we had some food laying around. Tried to make it as not as uncomfortable
Right,
of a
exactly.
situation.
You don't want to be like, you guys look like you're starving and don't have money for food. Here's a box of food.
Right.
You poor things.
You need this more than we
Right.
do. I'm sure that's how Janice felt it was, in her own head. That's probably how
right.
it felt to her.
But
though.
I doubt that's the way Jenny said it. I
Right.
really do.
Of course not.
Yeah. People around here have a way of putting things very nicely, very digestible, I like to call it, in the South. People know how to say things and do things where you feel good about it afterwards. Unless you're just looking to take it as malintent, you know what I'm saying? And if that's the
Right.
case, there's nothing that's going to stop you from taking it that way.
Exactly. And that's something we see with one of the listeners' email or messages that they sent us about their story about their neighbors. The malintent thing is like you can have the most sincere of gestures towards someone, and sometimes it's just there's nothing you can do to change their mind that was an attack on them or something like that. Some people are in their own head, they spin these web of lies and things like that, or maybe they're just mentally not well,
Right.
and in their own head you're attacking them even though you're just sincerely trying to help
Right.
them.
That's exactly
Like
right.
with the brownies that we see in the listener's story about their neighbor later on.
That's right.
So on the part of the Mathesons, there was clearly, to everyone in the neighborhood, they could see that there was some jealousy on the part of the Jarvises. The jealousy would quickly turn into rage and resentment. One night when some kids came through the neighborhood and kicked over everyone's trash cans, something that can happen anywhere. Doesn't matter how nice your neighborhood is. Kids will be kids, and they're going to be little assholes sometimes. And they went around and kicked everyone's trash cans over. The next morning, Jenny went out to retrieve her can and started dragging it up the driveway, but had apparently accidentally grabbed the Mathesons by mistake. Common mistake. A lot of trash cans look the same. They probably went to the same hardware store and got the same trash can that was on sale or whatever.
Right.
No, she didn't make it halfway up the driveway before Janice came flying out of her house screaming that she was trying to steal her trash can. And in the episode of Fear Thy Neighbor, man, this actress who plays Janice, it's like
So
it's funny because
intense.
like in the beginning of the episode, she looks like just a nice sweet lady smiling and stuff. And then in this scene is when you see this monster come out, and this actress did a great job of just showing this just disgust and rage
Yeah, she-
for her neighbor trying to steal her trash can. And she's screaming in her face and don't do that again.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it did seem over the top, but at the same time I'm like,
Yeah.
I could see them being on
But-
edge at this point.
They're trying to portray a woman who's losing her mind as well, because that was what was going on. And you see that. I had every bit of question I had about, maybe this is a one-sided show and maybe we're only hearing the perspective of the Jarvises and the Mathesons don't get their say in this. Every bit of that I had, every bit of doubt was immediately squashed when we see what the inside of their house looks like at the end of this case.
Yes.
Every bit of that was gone. Because I was like, they were batshit crazy.
Well-
They had gone. All these things had piled up on them, and they had lost their minds.
Well, and not only that, there were throughout the documentary, there's testimonies from other neighbors who completely backed up what the Jarvises were saying, almost on every account.
It was a one-sided hatred towards the Mathesons.
Towards the
I
Jarvises.
mean, towards the Jarvises by the Mathesons, where it was like the Jarvises would come out into their yard and immediately the Mathesons would be there screaming at them, and and 9 out of 10 times the Jarvises didn't respond at all. They would just do their thing and keep walking. And all the neighbors basically had the same thing to say about it, is that was the way it was.
Yep.
Now, as far as the story, the Jarvises were about to learn that the Mathesons had not only changed, but they had gone straight up bad. The miscarriage, financial woes, and health problems had driven them to a desperate insanity, and all of their rage seemed to be directed solely at their friendly neighbors, the Jarvises. And what's funny is that, well, not funny, but it's kind of weird, is that they really only directed it at them. Like, they were still cordial to the other neighbors. Like, the neighbors across the street were, in this show talking about what they had seen and all that, and it was like, yeah, they were still nice to us. That's what was weird.
You know what's funny? And you know what really struck me as odd? It kind of rubbed me the wrong way as well, is that almost all the other neighbors were younger and more in shape and more likely to whoop their ass. But yet they want to they want to pick on the older neighbors.
The older couple.
They picked on the older couple the entire time, which really frustrated me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
the couple that seemingly can't really defend themselves.
Exactly. And they're screaming at them and yelling at them and taunting them while they're on their own property. I mean, both families are on their own property. It's just, it's unreal, man. Like, there's no other explanation for that than some sort of mental duress that's going on. You got to be going through something.
Exactly.
There's just no way that you would continue to attack someone who's not attacking you back if you don't got something going on in there. Or it's just misprojection. They're angry. They're stressed out, and they want to take it out on somebody.
They don't know where to direct their anger.
Yeah, they want to take it out on somebody where they know there won't be no consequences. They think, well, if these people want to retaliate, we can take them.
Yeah, they're punching down, trying to.
Yeah, that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and so following the trash can incident, the Jarvises still were not content with just keeping this thing the way it was. They wanted to keep the peace with their neighbors. They'd never experienced anything like this, and it was stressing them out. So they tried to walk over when the Mathesons were out in their yard working on something. They tried to walk over and kind of just be friendly, like, hey. And as soon as they started entering into the yard of the Mathesons, they lost their minds again and said, "Get off my property!" Screaming at them. And it was at that point, it was no more, trying on the part of the Jarvises as far as like, okay, this is not going to happen. Like, we'll just keep to ourselves and let them be and let bygones be bygones, because apparently they want nothing to do with us being friends anymore.
Right.
And it was following that incident that the signs started to be put into the ground along the property line. The Mathesons started posting excessive amounts of no trespassing signs right along the property line that divided them from the Jarvises.
Yeah.
And so it must have just looked bizarre to anyone driving through, because it was literally just a row of no trespassing signs on one side of the property, not on the other side, because like we said, they had no problem with the other neighbors.
Right.
It was just
exactly. And they were wanting to put up, and they put their houses for sale too. So they put up a for sale sign amongst all those signs. And it's like, how do you expect to sell your house? If I'm driving by, I'm going, why the fuck do they need that many no trespassing signs?
Yeah.
Like, they got a serious...
and the house is falling apart as well.
Right. It's like, they got a serious trespassing problem here. Why would I even want this place? Right. It's like they didn't realize...
But of course that was the Jarvises' fault, though.
Yeah, exactly.
In their own minds.
Oh, I see what you're saying. The Mathesons think it's the Jarvises' fault. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so as you mentioned, a for sale sign goes up to kind of add to the trespassing signs, and this was not really known by the other neighbors, although I'm sure most of the neighborhood knew that the Mathesons were struggling financially. It was apparent, but they were secretly on the verge of losing their home. They hadn't paid their mortgage in nearly a year, and it was going into foreclosure. And actually, it had been listed as a foreclosure, and there were random people pulling up and kind of like surveying the home from a distance across the street, because technically they could buy it from the bank at this point.
Yes.
So they were just driving by and checking it out. And it might have helped that this house looked like such a shit show as far as that was concerned. It might have helped keep part of me wonders if that was a little bit of what they were doing. The Mathesons always being outside, acting crazy, piling up shit along the property line, as we'll mention in a minute.
Yeah.
All the trespassing signs, everything they were doing.
That's a good point.
And then when you see the inside of the home with the toilets pulled out and everything, it's almost like, were they just trying to stay here as long as they possibly could before the bank finally took it from them?
I think they were, but I mean, if you sell the house, you might make a little bit of money, also get out of debt, and then you're free. But I
Yeah.
don't I do understand like
But the bank was not going to let that happen, as we see. It was already
right.
it was done. It was in foreclosure.
Now
Like
I see
they were trying to sell the house under the bank's watch, and it's like the bank's going to find out, and they're going to put this stop to this sale.
yeah.
And they're going to sell it themselves.
Exactly, exactly. And once it got to that point, then I would see the sense in, trying to make the house look like shit or being crazy or whatever, because they just wanted people to not want to interfere. I mean, God,
Yep.
I mean, if I was driving by, I sure as hell wouldn't stop and be like, "Hey, is your house for sale? Can I take a look around?" Not a
Right.
chance.
Right.
I mean, the way that
Not when you see these two people who have all these trespassing signs. They have put blue tarps over their windows.
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
All the neighbors were speculating on what the hell are they trying to hide inside this home that they're putting up tarps over their windows.
And their doors. I think they put up tarps over their back
Yeah.
door. But I think a lot of that was just they weren't able to maintain the house. The doors and
Yeah.
entryways and stuff were probably leaking or drafty, and they had, they had no ways of protecting the house from the elements. So they were just doing what
Yeah.
they could.
Yeah, so the Mathesons put their house. They put this for sale sign out. They're taking, anybody that wants to make offers. They're hoping to sell this house before the bank can evict them. However, they were convinced that because their home wasn't selling, it wasn't because of the state that their home was in and all the things that they had done to contribute to that since moving back in. It was obviously the Jarvis's fault because the Jarvisons had some boxes and bins in their backyard with some electrical equipment that had been back there since the beginning of
Yeah.
time, apparently. Old Irwin had these boxes of electrical stuff back there forever. It was just kind of his routine. I think he kept any parts he needed for that day when he would go to, fix someone's electrical situation. He'd go out there and get it from his bins. and
Right.
That's just what it was.
It just makes sense. You make money on that shit little by little over the years. The less you have
Yeah.
to spend on materials, the better off you are.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
but yeah, you left the trash back there. That's a deal breaker for me, man. I just can't look at all that electrical trash.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, when it comes to I'm trying to buy
Right.
the house next door to you,
Right.
those bins of electrical stuff
Oh,
is the
no.
problem, not the tarps over the windows, the row of shit along the
Right.
property line, all the trespassing signs, the fact that the house is dilapidated and falling
Yeah.
apart. It's that electrical next
I
door,
can
next
deal with
door in
that
those little
stuff,
boxes.
but goddamn, don't put your electrical shit out in the side yard, man. I just can't deal with that stuff.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah. So one day when Jenny was out in the backyard, Janice would come up and confront her about the boxes with electrical stuff, saying that was the reason that the Mathesons were having such a hard time selling their home was because their neighbors had this junk in the backyard and tells her to get rid of it now. And Jenny's had it at this point with Janice being so violent and cruel to her. And she says, no, I won't do that. And so she walks away. And next thing you know, they get a notice from the city that they had been reported about their junk in the backyard. And Irwin at that point begrudgingly took his boxes of electrical equipment inside.
And dude, that's literally
And,
all it takes to get that kind
Yeah.
of shit. Because I used to work for the city here, for a local city, and I asked people because I was all around the city. I saw shitty yards all over the place, and and I finally asked one of the guys who was over that type of thing, and I was like, "Well, what is it? What are the limits? Like, how do you decide who has to clean up
People
their
have to
yard
report you.
and who doesn't?" Yeah, and he's like, "Well, if it annoys somebody, then they have to clean it up. If it doesn't, they're fine." I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me!"
And aren't they? I don't know. They're taught, from my understanding, to have blinders on. So when they get a report of something, someone has a complaint about some shit on somebody's yard, they're taught to go straight to that yard and they pass up stuff just like that
Yes.
on other properties. And then they'll go and they'll, give a citation or whatever or a notice to someone to clean it up there. And meanwhile, their neighbor has the same thing going on, but they weren't reported to go to the neighbor's house. They reported to go to
That's
that
right.
one.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease, man. Whatever gets
Exactly.
complained about, that's who gets the citation. And if
Yeah,
your
so it
neighbor
must
doesn't
have been
like
kind
you,
of ironic.
yeah,
It must have been kind of ironic and hypocritical when the person working for the city showed up and gives a notice to the Irwin or to the Jarvises about Irwin's stuff in the backyard. Meanwhile, if he were to glance next door at the Mathesons at their shit show that they had
oh
going
my
on,
God, I know,
quite literally shit show
literally
next
a
door.
shit show.
The amount of citations he could have given them, but he wasn't reported to go there. So that's the way it is,
the way
like
it
you
is.
mentioned. So yeah. Nothing the Jarvises did was enough, however. Janice seemed to have an obsession with her neighbors, mainly Jenny. Every time Jenny came outside, Janice would quickly appear and loudly berate her, calling her a whore and a filthy pig. She called her the trash queen, I believe.
She did. Yeah.
All kinds of nasty names. And Irwin wasn't completely excluded
No
either.
basis
Janice
for
would
these
call
names
him
either. Just
No,
shouting out
yeah.
random stuff.
This is a woman who later in this story is throwing her own human feces at someone, and she's calling this woman a pig
Yeah.
and a trash queen.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you're literally throwing
You're literally throwing shit. Oh my god.
Yeah, and so Irwin wasn't completely excluded from this verbal abuse. Janice would call him fat and lazy when he came outside, and she would frequently walk her dog, the large, aggressive dog, up and down the property line, threatening to have the dog kill them and their son. She's getting to this point when she's getting to straight up death threats. Like there was
Yeah.
times where she would do the whole throat slitting thing with her fingers to Jenny when she was outside. And as we mentioned, what was odd is that Jesse and Janice were still cordial to the other neighbors while being completely vile to the Jarvises.
Yeah.
Finally, the Jarvises would turn to the police, who came out on several occasions and took reports. But all they would do is take statements. And of course, when they came out, the Mathesons would do their best to act normal and say, "I don't know what they're talking about."
I mean,
And
what are you
as we've
supposed to
seen
do?
before,
As
Yeah,
as an officer, what are you supposed to do? I mean, you hear one
yeah,
side,
unless you have
you go hear the
unless you have some sort of video evidence or something, there's nothing they really can do.
exactly. I mean, you hear one side, then you go to the other side and hear the complete opposite. Okay, cool. Now I'm at ground zero. Like, what do I?
I guess what they could have done is talk to the neighbors, maybe, because the neighbors saw what was going on. They were witness to all this, so
Yeah,
maybe the
but
neighbors could have gave them a clearer
neighbors
picture.
don't want to get involved, man. They don't want to be seen out in their front yard
Right.
talking to the police about
They
these
don't want to become the
crazy-
next target.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's another reason why the Mathesons kept doing this. I mean, like I said, they wanted people to stay away from them, and everyone else got the message. But at the first,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if
The Jarvises.
Jarvises wouldn't have even tried to confront them again, maybe they just let the Mathesons take the first step when they move back. Maybe none of this happens. You know, maybe they were just frustrated because of that. Because they
Yeah.
tried to put the spotlight on them. They just wanted to show up. They wanted to get their shit. They wanted to buy some time, and then they wanted to leave. Maybe that's all they wanted to do.
And so the police come out, they take reports, they do this over and over again, and what they recommend is that the Jarvises get a restraining order against the Mathesons, and they decide finally that might be the best thing to try and stop this harassment. And they actually take the Mathesons to court, and they make the mistake of not getting an attorney to represent them, and they try to present their case, and the judge is just not, he's saying, you're not presenting your case well enough, and I'm not going to give you this restraining order. And so from there on, of course, the harassment just got worse, because now it's like the Mathesons were almost justified in, like, now we can be as crazy as we want, and the police and the courts are not going to help you.
Right. Well, they were staying within a certain bounds. They weren't touching anybody. They weren't going off of their property. They weren't taking any of They weren't taking any of the Jarvises' things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So legally, it's kind of hard to get someone arrested for yelling in their yard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's just, I mean, disturbing the peace, but you're the only one that's saying that. I
Right.
guess.
Yeah, because the neighbors weren't willing to step up and back up the Jarvises.
Right, but I understand them not wanting to get involved at the same time too.
Yeah, because the Mathesons are certifiably crazy at this point.
Right. You don't want them turning that focus to you.
And they seem to have nothing better to do other than spend all their days waiting for their neighbors to come out and torment them. Like, they don't have jobs. They're always seemingly like either watching out their window for the Jarvises to come outside, or they're already out in the yard waiting for them.
Yep. I know
really
they
bizarre.
said that Jesse was working part-time, but I mean, even at part-time, he still has plenty of time to help Janine harass the Jarvises.
Yeah, exactly. And so it got to the point where Janice would even be out at like 6 a.m. on weekends, dragging a shovel up and down the driveway, making a loud scraping noise just to annoy her neighbors. They made them seem like zombies almost in this show, didn't they?
Yeah, they
Especially
did.
at the end.
Yeah. And that scene as well.
Yeah.
Them dragging the shovel. And that is loud. If you ever drove you ever
Oh, yeah.
drug like the point of a shovel down concrete, I mean, it is loud. That sound carries forever. And she was like doing that first thing in the morning and
Yeah.
all day.
Yeah. And this is where it gets to the point where you actually could seemingly file charges if you could prove that they were doing this. But she began throwing food. Began throwing rotten food and feces on Jenny's clothes that were hanging out on the clothesline in the backyard. So she'd come out and her white sheets would just be stained with who knows what. She didn't know quite yet what it was, but seemingly tomatoes and some sort of manure or shit.
Yeah.
And by now, Irwin is carrying a pistol on him at all times. He's decided he doesn't even feel, he's like, I didn't need this for anywhere but my own property, which is the sad part. He's like, when I go out on the town, I don't feel like I need a gun. This is a safe town and whatnot. But on my
Right.
own property, I feel like I need it because my neighbors are so crazy. Jesse then at this point started piling up what seemed to be manure. It just reeked all along the property line, dividing the Jarvises and the Mathesons. And the manure was later determined to be mixed with human feces, and we'll get into that more a little bit later. But finally, the Mathesons found a buyer for their home, and it seemed to be maybe the Jarvises' nightmare was ending. But of course, the bank had other plans. They wouldn't allow the sale of this house to go on because it was already in foreclosure, and they should have known that already. You're not gonna be able to sell the house. The bank's already got their hands on it.
Yeah.
They're gonna try and recoup what they can from what you haven't been paying.
It's too bad that the Mathesons, and they may have, they just didn't want to, but it's too bad they didn't have the financial ability to buy this home. Wouldn't that be some great justice? Like,
Oh,
actually, I own
the
your
Jarvises,
house.
you
Get
mean?
the fuck out of here.
Right?
Yeah, the Jarvises.
That'd be
It'd be cool
hilarious.
if they could buy the Mathesons' house,
Right.
and just be like, get the hell out of here.
Right.
Renovate it. I mean,
They walk
I mean-
over and they're like, and the Mathesons are like, get off our property. Like, actually, here's the deed. This is our property. You get
actually,
off our
this
property.
is our property, and we're calling the fucking police.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
That
I
would
mean,
be great.
and Irwin was already an electrician, so I'm sure he had a lot of trade skills. He could
Oh, yeah, he could
have
have fixed
fixed
that
a
place
lot
up.
of issues with the house. Yeah. And they could have gotten some good renters in there, and then you get to stay where you are, and you get to
Yep.
pick who lives beside you. It's a win-win.
Exactly. Yeah, so unfortunately, the Mathesons remained in place until they would be evicted, which we know can take who knows how long. There's never really like an exact timeline on that. It's whenever the banks get pushy enough to send police to evict you, I guess.
Yeah.
So the verbal abuse and threats would continue. And one day when Irwin was loading things into his truck, Janice was out doing her normal routine of calling him fat and lazy and yelling at him. When his gun allegedly fell out of his pocket in his jacket. I think he sat his jacket. The show showed it like him setting his jacket like a vest on the side of his truck, on the bed of his
Right.
truck. The jacket falls, the gun falls out of the pocket onto the ground, and of course Janice begins screaming that he had pointed the gun at her. Now at this point, I feel like he's lost it though. Like he's already gone. Like speaking about Irwin, like they have pushed him to the brink now, and I wouldn't even doubt if he had pointed the gun at her like at this point, because this man they've pushed him over the edge, as we see shortly what happens.
Right. But you know what, though? He has no reason to lie about it. And
True,
as far as
true.
we can tell, he didn't lie about anything else beforehand. So I think at this point, I think she was kind of overreacting.
Yeah.
But maybe it kind of broke the ice. for
Janice
him a little
overreact?
bit.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
How could that?
she
That doesn't sound
tended-
like her.
No, well, occasionally she attended to overreact,
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Like when
there are,
the neighbor accidentally grabs her trash can and she loses her mind.
yeah, and remember that one time she was throwing feces?
Yeah, that too.
I mean-
the whole shit throwing thing. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's a little bit over the top.
Yeah, I love this part. Irwin, as we mentioned, was interviewed during this TV show, and he talks about this scenario where the gun fell out, and he said, "I just picked it up and I put it in my pocket. I didn't even look at her. I didn't talk to her."
Yeah.
However, this event was followed by Jesse, like either later that day or the next day, confronting Irwin about how he'd been harassing his wife, Janice. And Irwin, at this point, to the TV show producers, he said, if I would have just, I wish I would have stood up for myself in this moment, and I wish I would have just cold cocked him right then, and I probably would have been a lot better off than what I later did. But
Yeah.
he said, but I've always believed that you cannot defeat crazy. I was like, that is the whole story to this case. Like
It really is.
it would have just made things worse if he had punched him. He would.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have made anything better.
Well,
Is he
would've-
going to make that guy? Is he going to make Jesse less crazy? No, it's definitely not.
No, but it could have blew off a little steam, and that may have been what Irwin needed.
True.
But you don't know how they're going to retaliate, though, at the
Yeah.
same time. I mean, they're already throwing feces at you
Yeah.
and threatening your life with a dog, and then you go and actually assault them? Yeah, then you're in trouble, right? Because then now they call the police, and now you look like the bad people.
Yeah, now you're in court paying a bunch of lawyer bills to defend yourself on why you assaulted your neighbor.
Exactly.
And in the police's eyes, you're the guy who assaulted the other people, and now that they're justified, the neighbors are.
Yep.
And you're the
Regardless
crazy
of what
person.
happened. Yep. Regardless of what happened, you acted first. Yep.
Yep. So Jenny says that around this time, Jesse would even also frequently follow her in her car. So she'd be driving down her town in North Carolina, and he would pull out of some parking lot and just start trailing her. And she knew it was
Now-
him. That he'd be staring at her through the mirror.
This
the
is
ten-
just creepy.
Yeah, dude, this is just beyond like this. That's like stalker. Like you feel like you should be able. She could prove it. Once again, they did. I think they did end up putting up cameras and stuff, but by then it was like already on the verge of what was about to happen was going to happen.
Right, exactly. When you're talking about them having a lot of free time, this speaks to that right there. They had time to literally, at least Jesse did, follow her around town.
Right.
That is insane to me. Not only harassing her at her home, but now everywhere she goes as well.
Yeah. So Jesse's following her back home into their neighborhood, and then she pulls in the driveway, and there's Janice waiting for her right on the property line to just call her a fat pig and everything else.
Yep.
So the tension at this time was felt by everyone in the neighborhood. This had gone on for 4 years. That was the part that blew me away. I'm like, 4 years of this, dude. No wonder Irwin finally completely snapped.
Oh, I
It's
know.
just seemingly endless. It's like, when is the bank finally going to freaking go through and evict them so that this nightmare can end?
Yeah, it seems like it would go on forever at this time.
Every time that Jenny went outside without Irwin, Janice would be extra aggressive towards her, even at one point throwing human feces at her and hitting her with it. And they would come to find out later that that's what it was. They had an inkling because it just didn't seem like your normal cow manure. It reeked far beyond that, and
Right.
an inspection of their home would later prove that this was in fact human feces, and we'll get into that. But could you imagine your neighbors every day you pull up and they're not only verbally just assaulting you on a daily basis, but then they're throwing shit on you, throwing shit on your sheets in the backyard, threatening your life, threatening your son's life, just endless torment.
Like I said, man, they lasted a lot longer than I think a lot of people would have.
Irwin found himself spending more and more time in the basement, kind of just isolated, and his wife said that he'd become different at this point. He was not his same, fun-loving self. He was an easygoing guy, and now all of a sudden he was just in the basement, you almost picture him just staring at the wall, just trying to just get through these days.
Yeah.
He had grown distant.
Hear them, probably. as well.
Right. Yeah, you imagine it's probably a brick basement. He could go down there and not hear Janice screaming outside.
Exactly.
Or dragging a shovel up and down the driveway. It was kind of clear at this point that Irwin was on the verge of snapping. And on the morning of September 30th, 2013, and this was very strange to me you can't plan this shit or write this shit. This episode that you're listening to right now was released. We're recording Sunday, but Wednesday is going to be September 30th. So the day that we release this episode will be exactly 7 years from the day that this happened.
Damn.
Isn't that bizarre?
That is bizarre. On the anniversary. Good timing. Good timing indeed, Michael from the past. Good time for an ad. You know what's rare? Experiencing full plates of food, but still having a full wallet. But with America's Best Value Meal Kit, that is possible. That's right, I'm talking about Every Plate. With Every Plate, you'll get meals you'll enjoy and your bank account will love, delivered right to your door. Think of it this way. One meal is the same price as 1 cup of coffee. And Every Plate is up to 58% cheaper than any other major meal kit out there. You can't beat it. Every Plate dinners are the cheaper alternative to takeout or delivery. Recipes come together in about 30 minutes, definitely faster than a trip to the grocery store. And starting a meal from scratch, don't even get me started on that. Listen, I'm no chef, but I whipped up this Panko Ranch pork chops in a matter of about 40 minutes, and my family loved them. It came with roasted carrots, oven fries, and a zesty dipping sauce. It was delicious, crispy crumble on the outside of the pork chops with a tender inside.
everything went together well, and safe to say everyone's plate was clear. And one of the best things about this dinner was we spent less time deciding on what to cook and how to cook it, and more time just being together. Every plate's easy to follow recipes and pre-portioned ingredients take the stress out of dinner time. Every plate does the meal planning, the shopping, and prepping for you, taking the time-consuming guesswork out of cooking. Never buy more ingredients than you need because every plate's recipes come with everything already pre-measured. Every plate now offsets 100% of their carbon emissions. So what have you got to lose? You know you're still sitting there wondering what you're going to have for dinner tonight. Why not get 3 weeks of Every Plate meals for only $2.99 per meal? You can do that by going to everyplate.com and entering code CREEPER3. That's CREEPER, the number 3. Again, that's everyplate.com, code word CREEPER3.
So on the morning of September 30th, 2013, Jenny kissed her husband, Erwin, and drove off for work just like any other day. She said that Erwin seemed normal. He said, love you, have a great day, blah, blah, blah. And later that day, I think Erwin may have gone to work too. And later that day, before Jenny had gotten home from work around 4:15 p.m., Erwin took his dogs out for a walk. And this involved passing the Mathesons' home. As he passed the house, Janice held up her phone as if she were taking a photo or video of him. Erwin obliged her and flipped her off. And continued on his way, walking his dog, ignoring the screaming. He said that usually he could hear them screaming until he was out of earshot, like as far as he had to get far enough to where you couldn't hear a human screaming anymore.
Right.
That's how far he had to get. She and Jesse, that being Janice, continued to berate Erwin as long as they could until he was out of earshot. Approximately 30 minutes later, Erwin returned home, walking past their home again, put his dogs inside, and came back out to the front of his home to go to his mailbox. Of course, Janice continued her verbal assault and said something that finally pushed Erwin over the edge. He didn't say exactly what it was, but the show alluded to maybe the fact that she called him a coward, which I think makes sense. Like if you're just pushed to this point and you've kept all your feelings inside, you're this steam that's you're like you're built up with steam and you're about to explode, and then someone calls you a coward, like you won't do anything about it.
Right.
The fact that I've just been tormenting you for 4 years and you're a coward, you won't do anything, and it just pushed him to the point where he said shut up. And of course, him saying anything back to her
he finally
made her
said
lose her
something back.
mind. Yeah, God forbid he says shut up after you've been calling his wife a pig, throwing shit at them and everything else.
For 4 years.
He says shut up. Yeah. He says shut up to her, at which point in his testimony, he says that she began running at him with her arms waving, and he just pulled his gun out and began firing. Jesse, of course, ran to his wife's defense, and he was gunned down as well. In the end, 15 shots were fired at the Mathesons before Erwin's gun jammed. So I think most magazines on a pistol like that are like 16 rounds, so he might have had one more in there, but that last round jammed.
Yeah.
And you know damn well he would have put that round in him as well if it was available, because he was even seen by a neighbor and the Mathesons' 12-year-old son who was watching from a second-story window. That's a really tragic part of this story, is that the son, who, it's an innocent 12-year-old, and his parents had lost their minds, unfortunately. He was dealing with that, but now he witnesses them be murdered in their own driveway.
Right. But didn't he put one final shot into Jesse?
Yeah. So the witnesses, including the 12-year-old son, witnessed Erwin stand over Jesse because he was there still alive, comforting his wife, who I believe was already dead. And Erwin walked over him and put a bullet in his head.
So that means he
effectively
cleared the jam,
executing him.
reloaded the bullet.
Well, I think that the gun jammed after that shot, because the gun,
okay.
there's actually a picture of it in evidence, and you can see the round jammed in it.
Oh. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. He then tossed the gun to the side. Jesse and Janice were dead at this point. I think he put 8 shots in Janice and 7 into Jesse, and they'd both been shot in the head as well. He tossed the gun to the side and stood right there in the driveway and waited for the police to arrive. So he was obviously he's going to try and claim self-defense. There's just no ground to stand on for self-defense here, because he was in their yard. He shot them in their own driveway, and it goes well beyond self-defense when you put 15 rounds into people who are unarmed. They have no guns.
Yeah.
They have no weapons.
Yeah,
and you stand over them and execute them. That's
Yeah.
not self-defense.
I can't get behind that, man. I'm sorry.
No.
There's been people that's gone to prison for shooting people in their own homes, and if they're gonna lock away those people, they have to prosecute
Lock away
Irwin here like that.
Irwin, yeah. Now, that being said, we understand how it happened.
absolutely.
And we get that he lost his mind, and it's not justifying his actions at
Also-
all. They should have moved. They should have moved. I
They
know
should
it's
have moved.
brutal,
Yep.
and I know that Irwin's wife, Jenny, this was the home she grew up in, all that, and it's sad.
Yeah.
But even if they temporarily moved and kept paying the mortgage and rented somewhere until the Mathesons left, something, but they had to get away from this situation, and murdering them in their driveway is not the answer.
Nope. But at the same time, playing devil's advocate here, like this couple not only tormented him and pushed him to the limit, but they also threatened his son and his and his wife every single day. I mean, talking
Yep.
about they're going to kill them, that they're going to release this dog on their son.
Yep.
Like if you're threatening my kids and my wife, like you said, the obvious thing is to just get them out of harm's way. That's the easiest
Exactly.
situation. So you can continue to be together and live your life somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But if your wife absolutely won't move, and I mean, Irwin, toward the end of his life, he was in his 60s.
He was 60 when he shot the
See what I mean?
the neighbors.
He's thinking,
Yep.
well,
Fuck
at least
it.
I can give my wife, and my son some peace. And
I can't help but think that as soon as he dropped that gun and they were gone, he probably had this moment of this extreme relief where he was just like, well, it's over.
Ain't that crazy, man?
Sounds messed up, but I feel like that was where he was at. Was just like, I can't hear that lady scream at me or my wife anymore. She can't throw shit at us anymore. It's over.
It's over. It's definitely over. Life as you know, it's over.
Yeah.
for
Oh
sure.
yeah. And now he'll spend the rest of his days in prison. And when the police arrived, they obviously took Irwin into custody, and they eventually took a walk around the Mathesons' home. And what they found was what one neighbor called a, quote, visual record of their emotional state. Video evidence of the home, which you can actually see online, shows disturbing living conditions, especially when you consider that they had a young child living there as well. Their toilets had been removed and set aside, replaced with hefty bags as to produce the feces they needed to stack along their property line and to throw at their neighbors. Large jugs of urine were sat about the home, trash bags everywhere, no food, and general filth, and they were raising a young child in this home. Irwin was subsequently charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, and he insisted that it was self-defense. Of course, the courts and the jury disagreed with that. Irwin would end up accepting a plea bargain and receive 32 years in prison, which means he'd be 92 years old if he ever lives out his full sentence. Wow. And police records later showed that they were called to the neighbors' homes more than 24 times in the 3 years before the couple was killed. So police were called out there time and time again. Nothing changed, and Irwin finally snapped. Jenny continued to live in the home that she grew up in, and now has new neighbors moved in next to in the Mathesons' former home. So Jenny's still living there.
Man, I bet her neighbors are
hasn't moved on.
scared shitless of her. Like they're like, "Hey, don't go near that lady. Her husband shot those her last neighbors in their driveway."
Right.
Because that's
Yeah.
the only story that gets told now. All the the 4 years of harassment's all gone out the window when you kill someone.
Right.
what
She's
I'm
probably just
saying?
like, watch Fear Thy Neighbor, you'll understand.
Yeah, exactly. Watch, it's season
Season
4
2, or I think
what
it's
is it?
season 4, episode 2. Yeah.
Yeah, season 4, episode 2. It'll
That's a
tell
good
you
point.
everything you
I
need
forgot
know.
I forgot to mention how you guys can find this episode. It is Fear Thy Neighbor. You can find it on Discovery ID, and it's season 4, episode 2. The episode is called Desperate Times, Deadly Measures. So
Yeah.
if you want to watch it,
Like I said, I rented it on YouTube for $1.99. So
there you go. You can do
well
that
worth
too.
it. Well worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Very good true crime doc, or mini doc
And
rather.
so that was the Jarvises versus the Mathesons. We hope you guys enjoyed that. There's so many more stories like this of neighborly disputes. So many more episodes of Fear Thy Neighbor that we could cover if we wanted to do a series on neighbor disputes.
Yeah, we
We've
could.
done
We could do a
A
few.
couple of series. So,
Yeah, we could. Do
and we've even got a couple stories from our listeners that we can get into from Patreon that wrote us about some horrific neighbor situations they've had.
Oh my gosh.
So,
insane stories. You want to get into that now, or?
Yeah, let's do that, and
All
then we'll
right.
get into our shout outs and our sponsors. And so, yeah, thank you those that wrote in, and we'll thank more listeners in a minute, give some shout outs and stuff. But yeah, let's get into the story that a couple people wrote us from Patreon about their neighbors.
Awesome. Okay,
I'm going to
so
let Michael go ahead and take that.
all right, so the one I got to start with is from Mariah on Patreon or Maria.
It's a long one, too. It's a long
it's
one. It's like a
Mariah.
novel she wrote us.
It
But
is.
really paints a beautiful, she wrote it very well, and I felt like I got to know the characters in this. I got to know her and her family and this person that moved in across the street.
Yeah.
And it's
Let
very
me-
scary.
Right. And let me start with this. When I first saw how long it was, I was like, "Oh no." Oh God, here we go. But to be honest, once I started reading it, I couldn't stop reading it. So
You got sucked in, right? Same with
hopefully
me.
you guys will feel the same way. So, all right. So here we go. This is word for word from Mariah on Patreon. So it says, back in the spring of 2015, my husband and I moved into a trailer park in Kentwood, Michigan, which is a suburb of Grand Rapids. We were excited. It was our first home for us and our boys in a really nice neighborhood with a great school district. Everything was going great. We loved the neighbors we had and their kids. I'm talking weekly, weekend barbecues where the dads would all get together and tinker on whatever project while us moms would drink coffee, make side dishes, and take turns tending the kids. It was like this all through the summer. Then fall came, and Tiny moved in across the street. Tiny was not tiny by any means. This man was well over 6 foot and over 300 pounds of muscle. He was an older man, in his mid-50s, just a beast of an old man. At first, everything was okay. He pretty much stayed to himself. He would wave hello and goodbye, but me being the people lover I was, I wanted him to feel included. So I made my mom's Mississippi mud brownies and brought them over. That sounds amazing, by the way. Tiny was super appreciative and thanked me. He told me about his tour in Iraq, about his deceased wife and son. This is the conversation I regret every day. If I would have just let him be, none of what followed would have happened. So, 2 weeks later, it was a warm day in October. So my oldest son, Bubba, who was 8, and Monkey, my youngest at the time, 2, were playing on the front porch with chalk. Don't worry, we had gates on both stairs and our slider door was wide open. When Bubba came dragging his little brother in the door, just screaming for me. When I finally calmed him down enough to actually understand what had happened, this is what he said, quote, "Mama, Tiny had a gun pointed at our house with a red light on it. He was gonna shoot us." I'm sure that with both of you being parents, you can imagine my reaction. She's writing to us, me and Lauren. I was confused. I was confused and angry. Bubba wasn't a liar, so I believed him right away. But I also knew that I was way smaller than Tiny, so I waited for my husband to get home from work. I put a movie on, sang some songs with my boys, but they didn't go back outside. 35 minutes later, my husband got home, and I told him what Bubba had said and how scared he was. Terry, of course, that was her husband, was concerned and went over to Tiny's house to chat. I paced our trailer from front to back until he came back. Terry said that it was just a misunderstanding, that yes, Tiny had his gun out, but he was only cleaning his rifle for hunting season. Well, we live in Michigan, so of course I took his explanation at face value. I later explained to Bubba what I thought he saw, but he was adamant that that wasn't what Tiny was doing. I had a feeling Bubba was right too, but Terry talked to him and believed Tiny. Terry naturally distrusts people, so if he believed him, it had to be my imagination. So nothing really happened again until November, when Terry moved to third shift. That was when the tapping on our windows started. It would always happen around 12 a.m., an hour after Terry left for work. At first, I thought it was just the damn tree outside of our bedroom window. But as the nights went on, the tapping became more frantic. Finally, on the third night, I called my husband. He left work and came right home to check it out. Then when we discovered the words "filthy whore" and "Al-Qaeda trash" scratched into the siding of our home, right under our bedroom window, we of course called the police. I knew it had to have been Tiny. He was the only person I knew who went to Iraq and talked about Al-Qaeda. But we couldn't prove it was him, so the police wrote it off as teen vandalism. From then on, if Tiny was outside, I made sure the boys and I were inside.
My husband bought security cameras and set them up to look out our bedroom window and onto our front porch. We bought new locks that used a key and security code, and it was quiet for 2 weeks. Nothing happened. So fast forward. It was my birthday weekend. We were away at the mother's for the holiday. We left my car home and took Terry's truck. We were just sitting down to eat dinner when Reggie, our next door neighbor, called my husband. Someone fired off shots in the park, and they had hit my car. Reggie called the cops, and we needed to come home to talk to them. We left the boys with my mom and rushed home. I knew once again who did it and told the cops. They interviewed Tiny as well, and what do you think came of it? Absolutely nothing, because lo and behold, Tiny's vehicle was shot at too, along with Reggie's and the neighbor across the street from his house. Our security cameras only spanned our front porch, so they caught nothing. Thankfully, the park manager decided after this incident to put security cameras on the light posts throughout the whole trailer park. It was quiet once again for a blissful 5 months. I thought, finally, he won't do anything more because he knew cameras were everywhere now. Then, April of 2016 came. It was Friday, April 15th, and it was a beautiful day in spring. We officially owned our own home for a year. We were excited and happy, so we decided to do a barbecue like we have done so many times before. All the food and tables were set up in our yard, while all the kiddos played in the bounce house in Reggie's and his wife's Tanisha's yard. Everything was great. We were laughing and enjoying the mid-afternoon sun. Then 5 p.m. hit, and Tiny came out of his house. We could all tell Tiny was irritated over something. He was pacing his driveway, muttering to himself. He walked to his shed and came out with a metal bat. He resumed his pacing, but now he was slowly tapping the bat into his palm. I was getting ready to put a bowl of salad mix on the table when I looked up and met Tiny's eyes. I knew right then he wanted me dead. The hatred was so intense in his eyes that it made every hair on my body stand up. Tiny then pointed the bat at me and screamed. Just this guttural sound, no words, just a scream. Tanisha hollered to Reggie and to Terry, then ran to usher all the kids into her house. I ran for my phone inside my home. By the time I made it to my door, Tiny was taking his first step onto our porch, with that bat over his head, getting ready to swing on me. Terry was right behind him and shoved him. He sent Tiny flying one way and the bat the other. He landed on his stomach, and Terry and Reggie pulled him by his feet off of our porch. That's when they took the fight to the street. As I was on the phone with 911, I heard a huge crash outside. Tiny picked Reggie up and threw him into the front of our trailer so hard he fractured Reggie's skull and dented our home. It took the cops 5 minutes to arrive, but I swear it felt like a lifetime. Tiny had my husband on the ground pummeling him. I couldn't do anything because I knew if I stepped outside, I was dead. It took 6 police officers and a taser to get Tiny off of my husband and arrested. Terry ended up with 5 broken ribs and a concussion. Reggie had a fractured skull and 3 broken fingers. It wasn't until later during his trial that I found out why he hated me so much. You remember those brownies I made? Apparently, Tiny suffered from PTSD and schizophrenia. He also couldn't eat gluten. He took the brownies I made him as me attempting to kill him. That I and my family were Al-Qaeda spies sent here to finish him off. That the day Bubba came running in scared, he was going to shoot them, but my big boy was smart and ran before he could. That he was in fact peeping through my bedroom window. He also scratched the words into our trailer. He was also taking pictures of my family, which he had stashed in a safe with pages upon pages of his theories and strategies on how to eliminate the target, my family. Thankfully, he was arrested in 2017, spent 5 years in prison, and upon his release, he's going to spend 5 years in prison. And upon his release, he is required to live in a state group home with people who are like him and have committed crimes. It's like a mental ward, but smaller, with 24-hour security. As for my family and Reggie's, we will, of course, have moved out of that park. We have, of course, moved out of that park. We bought a duplex together in an even better neighborhood in Kentwood.
They live on the right, we live on the left. And I thank God every day that they are our family now.
Good
Ooh,
Lord.
that's
I
insane.
feel like you just read a Stephen King novel, dude. That is just horrific and
I
scary.
know. I know.
You
Isn't
just
that
never know what's
insane?
going on in people's minds. Like you bring him over brownies, and of course that's an attack in his mind. Like, good Lord, and he starts like planning out a battle attack to take out your family. It's just so crazy.
Right.
Be careful, people.
Yes, you have to be careful. You never know about people. Never about people who are unstable. They like we talked about earlier, misinterpreting actions. So crucial. So crucial. So that's an extreme case of bad neighbors. I mean that's just as extreme as any other case. That could literally be on an episode of Fear Thy Neighbor.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, and luckily no one died in the end, and Mariah and her husband and everybody
Yeah.
were okay. I mean, as okay as you can be after suffering a skull fracture and a concussion and all that stuff that
Yeah.
her husband and the friend dealt with. But yeah, we thanked Mariah for the story and got her permission to read this on here. And she said that Tanisha, Reggie, Terry, they all loved the show, and they agreed that if anybody could share the story, it would be us. So hopefully we did a good job of sharing it. We
Awesome.
pretty much just read it verbatim because you're such a good writer. It was
Yeah,
like
that
we were
was
reading
great writing.
a freaking scary-ass novel.
Absolutely. We should get her to write for the episode.
Right.
I'll do little side shows like that all the time. Yeah, that
Right.
that was cool. Mariah, that was great writing. It's cool that you let us read it. Not cool that it happened, but we appreciate you
right,
sharing that experience and also letting people know. I mean, because I'm sure people are dealing with creepy neighbors and little instances just like that right now. And knowing what it could escalate to if not taking the proper precautions is good information for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, we can all agree that our soldiers that come home, they need all the help they can get, and sometimes they don't, or sometimes they refuse it, and they can go down roads like this where, schizophrenia and PTSD can really create these illusions in their head where
That's
people
right.
are after them and they're not.
That's exactly right.
Sometimes they can be dangerous. So
Absolutely.
scary.
All right. So
you-
we got one more story.
Okay.
This one's not quite that intense. This one's a little
Okay.
little on the lighter spectrum, but still a terrible neighbor. So
Not
this,
someone you want to live next door, regardless.
no, definitely not. So this came from Carissa. She wrote us via Facebook. It says, "We lived on 6 acres in a neighborhood of about 5 other 6-acre properties. A trail ran through our neighborhood that accessed 3 awesome trails that we and other locals like to use for hiking, biking, skiing, etc. And off of this trail was a 2-mile windy driveway that ended at Guy's house." That's a guy's name. His name is Guy as well. So
Okay.
at Guy's house, which was a solar dome that he built by himself. He could only access his driveway via this trail. So he was granted a right-of-way by all of us homeowners. Well, he got very annoyed with all of the trail activity because apparently it upset the illegal baiting of deer he was doing on his property. All of a sudden, we start hearing reports of a crazy person chasing families around on a snowmobile, literally scaring the crap out of little kids. I had to drive past the entrance to this trail to get home one day. Driving home with my 2 small kids, I look up and I see a huge gutted deer carcass strung up from a tree with barbed wire, and another string of barbed wire attached to a sign that was placed in the middle of the trail that said, quote, "No fucking trespassing, assholes," end quote. We let
Wow.
we let that deer hang for a week or so, thinking he would take it down. Well, he didn't. So my husband finally got up the nerve to bring him some beer and ask him to remove it. He was super nice to him and told him that he did it for us, that he thought we wanted him to do it to protect the neighborhood. What the fuck? That's what she put in here. Sorry, she put that in. So we'd never, ever had a conversation like that with him. Then a few days later, he brought us cookies. This guy
I'm just going to say, don't eat those cookies. That's all I'm
Right,
saying.
exactly. Well, they probably already did.
Play it safe.
Then a few days later, he brought us cookies. This guy looked like a real mountain man. He drank too much. He drove his dirt bikes around too fast. He shot guns all night long, and he made us cookies. He was so bizarre. So he was weird. He was weird. I'll give him that. And those aren't some of the best neighborly things. Drinking too
Weird,
much.
and once again, a little
Yeah.
element of like delusion. You know, like I thought you guys wanted me to do this for you. Once again, like a little bit like the brownie situation where
Eh.
it's like misunderstandings. There's like, no, that's not at all what was going on here. No.
I think it's a little bit of delusion, and it's also a little bit of, well, my scare tactic didn't work, so I guess I'll act like the nice guy now because I don't
Yeah,
want
it's
these
probably a
people.
lie.
I don't want these people calling the police or the park ranger on me for
Yeah.
doing this type of things. So that's how it struck me as me. It's like, he made up some bullshit there at the end when people actually started to call him on his shit. You know,
There's no really perfect way to escape the potential for bad neighbors because you can move to a rural area where you have huge properties like that, but with that comes the potential for crazier people too. Like when you're out and everybody's got 6-acre properties and stuff, you have a little more free reign to do what you want. And sometimes that harbors a maniac here and there. And then as well with the case like we did today, where you have neighbors that are a little closer, smaller properties in a city and whatnot, then you're on top of each other, and like every little thing can annoy each other, and then you can have potential for bad neighbors. There's really no perfect way unless you're out alone in the middle of nowhere on top of a mountain like Ruby Ridge or something. Like there's
Right.
really, you just gotta kind of hope you get good neighbors.
I agree, man. And there's just, like you said, it's just no way of telling. There's no way of telling at all. Sometimes you think being out in the
crapshoot.
country, sometimes you think being out in the country would be better, but I mean, then you got neighbors shooting
Then you get guys
guns and
running
riding
around
dirt bikes and shit.
Exactly, hanging up deers in the road.
Yeah, can't get a moment's
Deers. I
peace.
just said deers.
I live in a very similar area to that. Like my the land that I live on butts up to a state park. So I actually, especially during the fall and these upcoming months, in the mornings I'll start to be able to hear people because once all the leaves in the trees fall, the forest gets real thin and sound travels for miles. And you can
You'll
hear
people hunting.
well, usually people on the trail. They're usually hiking in groups and whatnot. But yeah, there are people hunting up there in that area as well, which I think is kind of sketch. You got people hunting right near walking trails, and I think it's a little too close.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a lot of that miscommunication. Sometimes you'll go on these trails, and there'll be little offshoot trails off of them that aren't made by the state, and you'll see some weird shit. Like I wandered onto it looked like a makeshift campsite, not so much like a hunting campsite, more like somebody was living there. Like there were like these big barrels. They looked like they had like, those 55-gallon barrels. They had them up around the perimeter of this circle that they had made in the woods. It was like a little clearing in the woods, and wherever there weren't trees, they put barrels in between them to kind of like build like this fence. There was a tent in there, and then there was like food wrappers and drink bottles and water bottles and shit. There was like a little spot where they had a fire. Like somebody lived there for a little while. For sure.
That's not good.
No, it's not good. I mean, this has been years ago.
We've seen how that can go
But,
wrong a few episodes ago.
Yeah, for sure. Now there has been some people that have like went on the run out in these woods, man, up on this mountain that I live near. They not that long ago, not too long after I moved back, so less than a year ago, there was an alert. We got an alert on our phone to like make sure we locked all our doors and everything because there was like a fugitive loose in the woods. There were helicopters flying over, like constantly trying to find him and shit. So I don't doubt people, they set up camp out there and hide out for as long as they have to.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
All right, should we
Crazy
get to
world.
some shout outs, some sponsors?
Yeah.
Should we do shout outs first or you want to talk Oh My Gaia? Oh
Yeah,
My
let's
Gaia?
talk Oh My Gaia right quick, shall we?
Yeah.
All right, Oh My Gaia. Let me pull it up here. What do I got going on? Here it
It's
is.
an all natural deodorant and beard oil company.
Oh, is it? Are they specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products?
That is correct.
Oh, okay. Because their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness as well. And at Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. Guys, there's tons of scents to choose from. Like we mentioned last week, if you're a hunter and you want to stay under the radar in the woods, there's unscented Oh My Gaia as well. You don't want to be smelling your old BO. You don't go out there with nothing. That's not good. They can smell that too, right? So you want unscented, or if you want to spice it up a little bit, you can get vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, my personal favorite, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, fireside, bergamot amber, true crime pine. You guys ever heard of that? That's a True Crime Guys special right there. Only you can get that through Oh My Gaia, True Crime Pine, specialized scent just made for our show. And because you guys are True Crime Guys listeners, you can use the word creeper, CREEPER, for 15% off your order at ohmygaia.com. That's OHMYGAIA.com or at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram.
Do it. You won't regret it. Use the code word creeper, save yourself some money, and get your pits smelling
Seriously.
fantastic with no harmful ingredients in there as well. So it's a win-win.
That's right, guys. If you don't believe us, jump on social media and just search
it out.
hashtag Oh My Gaia and see all the happy creepers out there who are
That is
now
right.
rocking Oh My Gaia in their pits, and they will never go back. They will never.
That's right. I want to give a couple special shout-outs real quick. I want to say what's up to Daniel Murray and his wife. His wife is Samantha, and she is 15 weeks pregnant, and he wants to
Oh.
tell her, Daniel wants to tell Samantha that she's doing a great job. Their little peanut's been kicking her ass, but she's doing a great job. And she got him hooked on our show. And so, yeah, he wanted a special shout out for his wife, and they're expecting a child. So good luck to you guys on your future and your little baby. And big shout out to you guys.
Yes,
Also,
congratulations, guys.
and these are patrons that requested special shout outs.
Right.
This is Cedric, who wanted a shout out for him and his wife, who are celebrating their 3-year anniversary. His wife's name is Jamie. So, Jamie and Cedric Duval, congratulations on your anniversary. And
That's right. Happy 3 years.
There's your shout out. There's your shout out. You happy?
Yeah, you happy? Hey, you guys have been been together just a little less time than we've been doing this podcast.
I know, right? Maybe we brought them together.
Yeah, who knows? I like to think so.
Yeah.
I like to think so. We'll celebrate our anniversaries together, guys. We're coming up on
Talking
4
death
years.
and bringing together life.
In December. December will be 4 years that we've been podcasting together.
That's crazy, man.
Unbelievable. Time flies, dude. So
let's give some more shout outs to people who took some time to go and rate and review the podcast on iTunes and whatnot. I want to say what's up to Bill Thick in the U.S. said 20 stars, but gave us 5 stars. I mean, unfortunately, it won't let him give 20, but he gave 5. That's the most.
What if
maybe
he
he did
left-
4 different.
Yeah.
He needs 3 more accounts
Right.
to do 5-star reviews on, and then we'll be at 20 from him.
exactly. There's nothing
So-
against that. People do that all the time in other countries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Bill Thick. And then we got one from Singapore. We got Ning Su. Said, hey, fellow true crime lovers from Singapore. Great podcast and research. Love how you guys allow each other to talk. Haha, love you too.
Awesome.
What's up? I don't know if we have any other from Singapore. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Then we got one from Belgium. Euro Joe said, savior from my boring 9 to 5. You guys are the reason my coworkers are becoming more and more sure that I will end up in jail. Wrote some more nice stuff and gave us a 5-star review.
Or
so thank
maybe
you.
you'll stay out of jail because we're teaching you the mistakes that you should not make.
Exactly. Exactly. He also said, little do they know, it's one of the few things that can keep me from killing them. Ha ha.
Right. It'd be
That's
our
a
little
joke,
secret.
people. Don't go
Yeah.
arresting Euro Joe, please.
Right. Leave Euro Joe alone. He just enjoys true crime podcasts like the rest of us.
Exactly. So then we got A, B, C, D, E. There's a bunch of each of those letters. From the U.S. said, good podcast, 5 stars. Heard about your podcast from listening to another. You guys do a great job. Smiley face. Thank you. And we got one more from Grandma Deb in the U.S. Said, binge the whole catalog with a pumpkin and a bunch of fire emojis. That's what's up. It is pumpkin season.
All right.
Thank all of you guys for all the kind words, all the time you take to go and write and review. We know that most of those, I'd say probably 9 out of 10 listeners never take the time to go do that. So we do appreciate the few that do go do it.
Yes,
So
we do very much. It helps the show a lot. It helps give people an idea what the show's about.
that's right.
Thank you.
We got some stuff to plug here for True Crime Guys Productions. You can find at True Crime Guys on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. And you can listen to our other shows. You can check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/truecrimeguys. $2 a month gets you all kinds of content,
That's right.
well over 100 recordings, pictures that we did in Photoshop. You get early releases on intros to episodes like this.
Yep.
Michael's other shows that he's done, aside from Strange and Unexplained, which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, $2
Right.
a month gets you access to all that. $5 a month gets you the gold Creep Van sticker, which is very prestigious and only a handful of people in the world have.
Absolutely. And don't forget that you can sign up for the yearly membership now. So you guys don't have to worry
Yep.
about that pesky automatic draw every month. If you got, I think it's you get a discount So if
It's like $21
Right.
for a year.
So let's
that
say
you pay up front, like
that's right.
$21.60 or something
what
like that.
would be $24 a year at full price at $2 a month. Obviously, you guys know math. It ends up being like $21 and something if you sign up. So if you get an extra $21, right? Maybe you get that second stimulus check we're supposed to be getting sometime soon. Maybe you got an extra $21. You go ahead and sign up, and you ain't got to worry about it.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So you guys will have access to tons of stuff. And it's not like if you listen to everything in a month, then you're done, because that's not the case, because there will be a new Patreon exclusive coming out every month.
Once a month, yeah.
Once a month. So you will actually get to listen to True Crime Guys every single week instead of having that one-off week every month. So it's a gift that keeps on giving, in my opinion.
Yeah. And we entrust things into the Patrons like we did this week with we asked exclusively the patrons if they had any crazy neighbor stories, like
Right.
things like that you don't get privy to if you're not a patron. So
Right.
you get treated special.
Right.
That's basically it.
And we're thinking about adding something new to Patreon. Lauren, I know we talked a little bit about it, but I think we could just add it to our Patreon page that we already have. And I wanted to kind of throw this out there, see what kind of feedback we get. What do you guys think about us doing a show where it'd be called Just the Banter? So it would be maybe a weekly
ATB.
Yeah, just a weekly check-in with me and Lauren. We would have a few topics, kind of loose-based topics that we could talk about. Maybe he's got a few, maybe I got a few, maybe we get to them, maybe we don't. Whatever it is. And we literally have a podcast where we get to banter and shoot the shit the entire time, which to me
Basically,
sounds
what
like
we're
a
saying
dream
is
come
we've been
true. So
what we're saying is we've been strong-armed into cutting out the banter in our normal show by
Yes.
people one-starring us and saying, I just get to the show. We want to hear it. And I'm like, fine. So we cut a lot of that stuff out. But if for those of you that love it, because we do get reviews with people saying, we love the banter, don't stop that.
Right.
We could do a little something just for y'all.
Absolutely. So let us know if there's interest in that, and maybe we'll make that a new segment on Patreon as well. Something for you guys that just like the banter and just want to be included in the conversation or know what's going on in our lives or whatever. So
That's right.
this would be a cool thing
You
to
want
do.
to talk about your other show, Strange and Unexplained, if you've gotten
Yes.
if you're all caught up on True Crime Guys, or if you're not, you want a little bit of True Crime Guys and you want some more True Crime Guys productions, you can't get enough of us, there's another show.
That's right.
Michael's Baby that I play a small role in as well.
That's right. And you guys can get hooked on this show for absolutely nothing, because Strange and Unexplained is available wherever you listen, on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, everywhere, pretty much. And if it's not, hit me up. Let me know, and I'll put it on there. But Strange and Unexplained, it's another show where we tackle unsolved, missing persons, or just strange phenomena cases. We do some more cult shit on there, which is pretty fun. It's a little more produced. It's a little more serious on some of them. Although we just recorded an episode on Skinwalker Ranch where we got to be a little more playful. If you're not familiar with that, it's a ranch that sees a lot of supernatural activity. It's one of the supernatural hotspots of the world, I guess you would say. It's in Utah. It's in the Uinta Basin. So that's what our most recent case that just came out this Monday was about. But we also talk about very serious cases, missing persons, and cases of minorities, people who don't get a lot of attention in the news, people whose cases really fall under the radar rather quickly. So we're trying to spread awareness about stuff like that, as well as have some fun with some strange topics as well. So that's Strange and Unexplained. If you guys search True Crime Guys on your podcast app, you should be able to find it. It is a True Crime Guys production. It should pull up with True Crime Guys. And if you guys love that show, if you're all caught up on that show, maybe you've already listened, you can join the Patreon for that show as well. It's patreon.com/SandU podcast. You'll get early releases of that show every Thursday, as well as access to 2 other shows that I do on there, one called Strange Shorts and one called The Palate Cleanser. So tons of stuff under the True Crime Guys umbrella. We don't want you guys getting bored. You know, this pandemic has really sparked our creativity and given at least me some more time to work on this sort of thing. And I just want to bring as much content as I possibly can to you guys, so you guys don't get bored out there. So,
Are you not entertained?
are you not?
All right, guys. Well, this is an extra long freeloader episode, and I'm about done. Football's about to start, and we'll see you guys next week. Keep creeping.
Keep creeping, guys.
True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder. True crime guys. guys. In the desert, we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us, cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder charming.